5 fruits. That is all it took, in one of the largest studies ever done on diet and kidney function, to lower the risk of developing kidney disease by a measurable margin. Not pills, not supplements, not anything you have to buy from a specialty shop. 5 ordinary fruits sitting in every supermarket, and the people who ate them regularly had measurably healthier kidneys decades later than the people who did not. The study tracked nearly 100,000 adults. The finding held after the researchers adjusted for weight, blood pressure, diabetes. And the part most people miss is that not every fruit does this. The aging kidney is fussy. Some fruits help it. Some quietly make its job harder. Here are the 5 that actually do the protective work, in the order that makes the most sense to start. Start with the one most people already have in the house: an apple. A plain, ordinary, eaten with the skin on apple. Most people see it as a sensible snack and never think about it again. But look at what is actually happening when you eat one. The fiber in an apple, particularly the soluble fiber called pectin sitting just under the skin, slows the rate at which sugar enters your bloodstream after a meal. And that single effect, slower sugar absorption, takes pressure off one of the 2 main processes that wear kidneys down over time. Because when blood sugar spikes, insulin spikes with it, and high insulin signals the kidneys to retain sodium. Retain sodium and fluid stays in the system. Fluid stays in the system, and pressure rises inside the very filters the kidneys depend on. The apple, quietly, is interrupting that chain. Every time you eat one with the skin on, you are blunting the spike that would otherwise be asking your kidneys to do extra work for the next hour. But that is only the start of it. Apples also carry compounds called polyphenols, plant chemicals that calm inflammation throughout the body, including in the small blood vessels that feed your kidneys. Inflammation in those tiny vessels is one of the quiet drivers behind kidney function declining over the years, and it almost never produces a symptom while it is happening. Eating apples regularly is one of the simplest things in your kitchen that pushes against that quiet inflammation. There is one more thing apples do, and it connects to research that has only become clear in the last few years. The fiber in an apple, the pectin in particular, is fermented by the bacteria in your gut into compounds called short-chain fatty acids. Those compounds do not just stay in the gut, they move into the bloodstream and influence inflammation in distant tissues, including kidney tissue. A gut that is being fed regular pectin from apples and similar fruits produces more of these protective short-chain fatty acids, and the downstream effect reaches the kidneys. So when you eat an apple, you are not just feeding yourself directly. You are feeding the bacteria that turn that fiber into compounds that quietly protect the very organ this conversation is about. And there is one more reason apples deserve a place in any kidney-supportive routine. They are naturally low in potassium compared to many other fruits, which matters because the aging kidney does not handle potassium loads quite as efficiently as it once did. For a healthy adult, this is not a daily concern. But for someone whose function has begun to slip, even silently, an apple is a fruit that delivers real benefit without adding to the mineral burden the kidneys have to manage. A medium apple a day, eaten with the skin, is a quiet act of long-term protection most people never give themselves credit for. Now, once apples make sense, the next one usually follows in the same conversation. Because if you ask anyone who has looked seriously at the research on fruit and kidney health, the same word keeps coming up: berries. And of all the berries, the one with the strongest evidence behind it is the blueberry. Look at what is actually inside a blueberry, because the color is not just for show. That deep blue, almost purple skin comes from a family of compounds called anthocyanins. They are the same plant pigments that give red grapes their color, that give pomegranate seeds their color, and they happen to be among the most studied anti-inflammatory compounds in the entire produce aisle. When researchers exposed kidney cells to oxidative stress, the kind of cellular damage that builds up across the years and contributes to declining filtration, blueberry compounds reduced that stress measurably. In animal studies on aging kidneys, Blueberry supplementation reduced inflammation in the kidney tissue itself and helped preserve filtering function compared to animals that did not receive it. The human data is still building, but the direction is consistent. Blueberries appear to do something the aging kidney genuinely benefits from. And the practical part matters here, because how you eat them changes how much you actually absorb. Fresh blueberries, frozen blueberries, dried blueberries, all of them carry the anthocyanins. Frozen are often more nutrient-dense than fresh blueberries that have sat on a shelf for a week, because they are frozen at peak ripeness. A handful a day, in oatmeal and yogurt, eaten plain by the spoonful, is enough. Not a heroic portion. Just a handful, consistently, the way the most useful health habits always look. They are low in potassium and low in phosphorus, the two minerals that the aging kidney has the hardest time clearing. So even for someone whose function has started to slip, blueberries are one of the safer fruits to keep eating. That combination, real protective compounds plus a low mineral load, is what makes them sit so high on this list. Most fruits are either one or the other. Blueberries are both. And while we are on berries, there is one worth mentioning briefly in the same breath, because it carries many of the same compounds in a slightly different package. Strawberries. They contain similar anti-inflammatory plant pigments, similar antioxidant activity, and they sit in the same low potassium range that makes them friendly to an aging kidney. They do not have quite the same depth of kidney-specific research behind them as blueberries do. But if you are someone who finds blueberries hard to keep on hand, fresh strawberries in season, or frozen ones year-round, are a reasonable cousin in the same family. The point is not to obsess over the single best berry. The point is to have berries in the rotation, somewhere in a normal week, in some form. Whichever ones you actually enjoy eating are the ones you will keep eating, and consistency beats perfection here every time. And once apples and blueberries are clear, the next fruit usually surprises people, because it is sitting in the supermarket year-round, and most people never connect it to kidney health. Red grapes, not green grapes. Specifically red grapes, and the reason is one specific compound sitting in the skin of the red ones. It is called resveratrol, the same compound people associate with red wine. And while the doses you get from eating a handful of red grapes are nothing close to what gets studied in concentrated supplement form, the everyday food level intake of resveratrol from grapes is genuinely interesting when it comes to the kidneys. In animal research on kidneys exposed to high blood pressure damage, resveratrol improved the kidney's ability to filter, reduce the amount of protein leaking into the urine, which is one of the earliest signals of kidney damage, and restored some of the antioxidant defenses inside the kidney tissue itself. That is meaningful, because high blood pressure is one of the two leading causes of kidney disease in older adults, the other being diabetes. Anything that helps the kidney withstand that pressure has a place in a kidney supportive routine. Resveratrol also lowered blood pressure in some of these studies, which means the protection it offers may run on two tracks at once, helping the kidney directly and easing the upstream pressure that wears the kidney down to begin with. The practical detail matters. Most of the resveratrol in red grapes is in the skin, so seedless red grapes with the skin intact are the way to get it. Grape juice has it too, but in concentrated sugar that does the opposite of what you are trying to accomplish, so the whole fruit is the better choice. A small bunch as an afternoon snack, frozen as a summer treat, added to a salad. And red grapes also happen to sit in the moderate range for potassium, which means they fit into most kidney-conscious eating patterns without much thought. There is something else worth noticing about all three of these fruits so far: the apple, the blueberry, the red grape. None of them is being marketed as a kidney superfood. None of them is in the supplement aisle. None of them is expensive. They are in every supermarket. They are quiet, ordinary fruits doing real protective work for people who pay attention. And that is the pattern. The food that protects the aging kidney is almost never exotic. It is almost always something that has been sitting in front of people for years. Which brings the next one, and this one is more specific in what it does. cranberries. Cranberries are different from the others because their primary kidney benefit runs through a different mechanism, and it is one that almost specifically matters as people get older. Cranberries contain compounds called proanthocyanidins, and proanthocyanidins do something genuinely interesting. They make it harder for certain bacteria, particularly the E. coli bacteria, responsible for most urinary tract infections, to stick to the lining of the bladder and the urinary tract. Less sticking means less ability to set up an infection. And that matters because urinary tract infections become more common in older adults, women in particular. And when those infections climb upward and reach the kidneys, the damage they cause can be lasting. The honest framing is this. A large analysis pulling together nearly 9,000 participants across 50 studies found that cranberry products reduced the recurrence of urinary tract infections in women with frequent infections, in children, and in people undergoing certain medical procedures involving the bladder. That is real, well-supported evidence. The honest caveat the same review noted is that the benefit was less clear in the elderly population specifically, possibly because the causes of UTIs in that group are more complex. So cranberries are not a guaranteed shield for every older adult, but for many people, particularly those with a history of recurrent infections, cranberries appear to genuinely help, and they do it through a mechanism nothing else on this list provides. The practical part is where most people get tripped up. The sugary cranberry juice cocktails sold in plastic jugs do almost nothing for this purpose. They are mostly sugar and water with a small amount of actual cranberry. Pure cranberry juice, the kind that is genuinely tart and unsweetened, or whole cranberries, frozen and tossed into oatmeal or a smoothie, or dried cranberries without added sugar, are where the actual benefit sits. A small daily portion is enough. This is not a fruit you eat by the bowlful. It is a fruit you fold in, quietly and consistently, particularly if your history includes the kind of infections this compound is genuinely useful against. And then there is the fifth fruit, and this one closes the conversation in a slightly different way, because the benefit is not just chemical, it is also physical. Pineapple. Pineapple is on this list for two specific reasons. The first is what is inside it. Pineapple contains an enzyme called bromelain, found nowhere else in the produce aisle in the same amount. Bromelain has been studied for its anti-inflammatory properties, and inflammation, as we have said throughout this video, is one of the quiet wearing forces on the aging kidney. The second reason is what pineapple is missing. It is naturally low in potassium and low in sodium, which makes it one of the safest sweet fruits for a kidney that may have started to slip, even silently. Many sweet fruits, bananas, oranges, melons, are wonderful nutritionally, but carry a potassium load the aging kidney may not handle as well as it once did. Pineapple gives you sweetness, hydration, and an anti-inflammatory enzyme without that mineral burden. There is one more piece worth mentioning about pineapple that connects back to the kidneys directly. It is almost 90% water. And hydration, plain and uncomplicated, is one of the single most important things you can do for the kidneys at any age, but especially as the years add on. Older adults often feel less thirst than they used to, which means many people are quietly running on lower fluid than their kidneys would prefer. The water locked inside a fresh piece of pineapple, or a bowl of watermelon, or grapes for that matter, counts toward that hydration in a way that is gentler on the kidneys than gulping glasses of water all at once. Eating water-rich fruit is a slow, steady drip of hydration that the body absorbs smoothly. That alone, separate from any compound or enzyme, is a quiet act of kidney support most people never think of as one. The practical part is simple. Fresh pineapple, cut into chunks, eaten as a snack or after a meal. Frozen pineapple in a smoothie. Canned pineapple in its own juice, not in heavy syrup, is fine when fresh is not available. The bromelain is most concentrated in the core, the part most people throw away. So cutting through the core and blending it into a smoothie is one of the simpler ways to get more of it. None of this is complicated. None of this requires a recipe. Now let me step back, because the pattern under these 5 fruits is the real lesson, and it is the part that changes how someone should think about their plate going forward. Look at what these fruits have in common: apples, blueberries, red grapes, cranberries, pineapple. Each one of them carries plant compounds that calm inflammation. Each one of them is low to moderate in the minerals an aging kidney has the hardest time clearing. Each one of them, in the research, has shown some genuine protective effect on the kidneys themselves, either directly or through the upstream conditions that drive kidney decline in the first place, like high blood pressure and insulin resistance. They are not magic. They are not cures. They are quietly doing the kind of work the body responds to over years of consistent intake. And the fruit you do not eat matters too. The fruit aisle is not all equal when it comes to aging kidneys. Bananas, oranges, melons, dried fruits, while wonderful in many ways, carry potassium loads that an aging kidney may genuinely struggle with, particularly if function has already started to decline silently. This does not mean banishing them. It means understanding that the protective 5 we just walked through are the ones doing the most kidney-specific work, and they are the ones to lean on most consistently. The others are fine in moderation for most people. The 5 are the foundation. There is one more thing to address, honestly, because it always comes up: juice. Even with these protective fruits, the juiced version is rarely as good as the whole fruit. Juicing strips out the fiber that normally slows sugar absorption, which means even a glass of pure, unsweetened blueberry or apple juice creates a faster sugar spike than the whole fruit does, and a faster spike asks the kidneys to do more work, not less. The whole fruit, in its original form, fiber and all, is almost always the better choice. The exception is unsweetened cranberry juice, because the relevant compounds for urinary tract protection are well preserved in the juice form, and you would have to eat an unreasonable amount of whole cranberries to match it. Most other fruit eat whole. Think about what a quiet week of this looks like: an apple with breakfast, 3 or 4 days, a small handful of blueberries on yogurt or oatmeal most mornings, a bunch of red grapes as an afternoon snack here and there, a spoonful of frozen cranberries in something, 2 or 3 times a week, a few pieces of pineapple after lunch or as dessert. None of that is a project. None of that requires a recipe. None of that costs much. It is 5 small choices scattered through a normal week that quietly add up to real protective work for the part of the body that almost never tells you when it is struggling. And that is what this comes down to. Kidney decline does not announce itself. It does not give you a chance to react. By the time the blood test catches it, some function has already been lost, and it is rarely something that returns to baseline once it has slipped, which leaves one real strategy: slow, consistent, quiet protection, with food that has been in front of you the whole time. Not supplements, not exotic powders, not detoxes. 5 fruits, each one doing something specific the aging kidney needs, repeated across ordinary days. You do not need to do all 5 tomorrow. Pick the one easiest to add. For most people, it is the apple, because it is already in the house. For some, it is the handful of frozen blueberries, because they last in the freezer and never go bad. Whichever one is closest to your normal week, start there. Let it become automatic. Then add the next. That is how patterns are built. And the pattern, not any single perfect bowl of fruit, is what protects the kidneys you will be relying on for the next 20 or 30 years. Body almost always rewards consistency more than effort. That is true of nearly every system, and it is especially true of the kidneys, which run on the quietest, most patient rhythm of any organ you own. Give them 5 small choices spread across your week, and they will do the work you cannot see. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next.